What's good with YouTube of Convicts Perspective? It's your boy Flaco, Senor Rojo, coming live and direct, little bit of energy. And today, as you know, we're going to be discussing a couple of things, man. We're going to be discussing NR recruitment, NF recruitment, and the character analysis it takes in order to recruit individuals into either one of these movements or either one of these organizations. And I'm going to kickstart it, man. Since you got Senor Rojo, who's the professional, what you call the Mr. Constitution, who has actually sponsored people in the organization, man, he's going to be covering a little bit about the NF and the process, which I know a little bit about what they call NF candidates or NF prospects and so forth and so what, man. But I'll go through the Nuestra or the Soldados or bro recruitment a little bit, man, because I've recruited several people into the NR. And so the basis for recruiting an NR Soldado, a bro, first, you start to have the need to fulfill certain manpower. And the whole purpose for recruiting NR members is to recruit people who are going to carry the torch for the lucha. They're going to represent that to the fullest. And see, the NR was the focal point of doing the bidding on these main lines in the absence of NF members to secure, educate, and establish for the betterment of the people to where we could plant our flag and be safe and have a yard where we could do our time. And so the NR members were the ones that were out there believing in the cause, supposed to put forth a full-fledged effort. So your first recruitment and looking into NR members, see, there's been a whole lot of different processes as far as within NRs. I did the whole NR spill. I mean, they've had a CAT system, they've had rank and file, they've been dismantled, they've been stripped, it's all changed. And back in the days, they've had different ways in how to recruit. There was a time frame when just an NR member who with alleged CAT rank could pull someone. As long as the OA of the yard, he had his sponsors, they could be recruited. Then they would go through their indoctrination, which would go through a process. They'd put them on probation sometimes, or sometimes they wouldn't even put them on probation. And what you would call them is basically candidates. You start to screen for manpower that you look at as worthy. And a lot of times you're looking for young individuals, the ones that are always waving their hands, the ones that are always trying to make that extra effort in writing their essay, the ones that come to you asking questions. And when you're on the yard, once you've been recruiting the NR or NF, you start to learn different things as what you call recruitment of soldados. And recruitment of soldados, whether you're an NR member or NF, will have it for different ways. Like their recruitment is looking for manpower that could be useful in the streets, whereas an NR member is looking for people who could be recruited and useful behind the walls. Those are the two big differences. You know, within the organization, the NF organization, they'll look for a northerner that they think who could be lucrative and beneficial, who has resources and stuff like that. Within the NR, you're looking for someone who can carry the plight behind the wall. And so you start to do your little analysis. And, you know, through the end of my career, it started to change. You'd have to have at least 2 sponsors, and it'd have to be stamped by a C. And preferably it'd be stamped by a regiment commander. The only exception would be if you had a channel to one of the NRCs or NRAs to where it could be processed to a C and stamped from there. See, people don't forget about that. There used to be a lot of communication with the Bay. And when you'd have your set channels, and they used to have what you'd call NRAs. And all these NRAs were communicating with Cs, basically. And even the Nuestra Council, let's keep it 100. Those that were put in position, which I know Pizza was, Cesar was in position. He was already an NF member when he was put in the NRC, but he was undercover. And that's the interesting thing is the NF has always used undercover. And so even with the NR authority back then, chain of command, they would have certain individuals who were portraying to be NR members, but they were actually Cs. And so let's go back into recruiting. So that's the things that you would look for. You want to look for worthy manpower, someone who's ready to stab, kill, but it's not always just about physically being able to do this. It's about what you can do here. You know what I mean? Do they know how to delegate responsibility? Do they know how to have responsible obedience? Can they follow directives? Can they understand the laws? And then you're going to undergo indoctrinating them basically with 7 phases, you know what I'm saying, of schooling, of the NR, 7 phases, 7 fundamentals, whatever it may be. Those are all the tools for an NR member. Like me, anytime I would pull an NR member, I would ask them straight up, do you want to make this commitment? You know what I'm saying? And they would understand that this was a commitment behind the walls. Whatever's asked of them, they're going to be expected to do. They're supposed to be in the forefront leadership of the people to uphold the bylaws and push forward for the people. You know what I'm saying? And there was a time frame when they would recruit you, man. I remember when I first was going through it, you know what they asked me, Rojo? They said that anytime if one of your family members did something wrong, would you be okay with taking them out? Did they ask you that?
No.
They asked us that. And they were calling it a governing body at the time, the NR, the elite circle. You know what I'm saying? This is when what people forget about the NR was the NR were left to their own devices out there in the main lines. They weren't always they turned almost into an organization on their own back then.
They did.
And started implementing their own policies and procedures, and there was no checks and balances for caste systems. So you'd have influential NR members that were making changes on their own. And so back to this whole topic, I'm gonna let Roland take over in a second, but that would be the process. You know what I mean? You'd have to have 2 sponsors with at least 5 years. This is at the end of my career. Before the career, it's always changed. I mean, there's always been different new implementations of recruitment. It's always changed. I'm pretty sure there's changes now. You know what I mean? At one time, after 10 years of being an NR member, you could be elevated to NF status. You know what I'm saying? You'd be offered that opportunity after you had 10 years. They would at least request that. That was one time in our bylaws. One time you had to do 90 days on the streets to function. You know, but the end of my career, it was very simple. The same things, you evaluate manpower, you see who's worthy. And then if you're a sponsor, you take under their indoctrination. You know, you want to teach them the like I said, you want to teach them NR history, NF history, you want to teach them the bonds and formats, and then weapons. Those are the first key things, is know your laws and know how to make a weapon. Then all the other stuff comes into play as you grow into being a soldado. That's why they think it takes about 5 years, you know what I mean, for an individual to serve as a sponsor, because if they have 5 years in the struggle, they've learned and became a competent and seasoned soldado to where they can teach the next soldado. So that's how the recruiting started, is based within the NR.
Yeah, I'll touch on mine real quick as far as my NR experience, man. What had happened with me, and I think I've shared this before, but I'm not 100%, but I got pulled out one day for medical or something like that by staff, you know what I mean, in the hole in East Block. And while I'm walking there, Miranda comes up and says, I need him, snatches me up, him and some other, it was a African-American gentleman. What was that guy's name? Miranda, and what was the other one, his crime partner? Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Bro.
Wells or something like that? Anyway, yeah, they snatched me up and they're like, who's running the yard? I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? They're like, well, we need to know this and this and this by the end of the day, or we're going to validate you. And bear in mind, man, I'm a regular norteño at the time. You know what I mean? I hadn't learned the bonds, learned the format, nothing like that. And so I go back to the unit and I do my report, and reporting to the homie boxer. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, this is what happened, whoop-de-whoop. And he's like, he basically told me F them dudes, and that was it. You know what I mean? But I submitted my report like I was supposed to. Boxer was just like, you know. So we go to the, you know, they're like, whatever, they can't validate you. You know what I mean? You ain't done nothing. You ain't got nothing to worry about. Man, about 3 weeks comes by, they slide a pamphlet under my door talking about my validation's approved. Like, you know, they fabricated a bunch of evidence on me, all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I tell Boxer what happened. I'm like, hey, bro, they validate me, man. And I was kind of just messing around, and I said, I might as well join, huh? And he's like, you want to join? And I'm like, man, let's do it, bro. And so he went to talk to Chico. See, I didn't know the whole time. I thought Boxer was a bro. You know what I mean? I didn't know he was already a C, because he was kind of real discreet about his stuff too. Not like a sleeper, because he never said he wasn't or nothing like that, but he never said he was. You know, I mean, I just thought he was a real well-respected bro out there. And he went and talked to Chico and Rex Posado and some other guys on the yard. They talked about me for a minute, and they're like, no problem. You know what I'm saying? From now on, you're going to go to this class. And, you know, instead of being, you know, how you got your juntas, you know, with the Northerners, the bros, and then the C's are doing whatever they do. I started going to the NR class, and that was that. That's what it took. But I had already been out on the yard. You know, it was my second trip to the hole already and stuff. So a lot of them bros and C's that were on there, Pocky, Chente, DK, Big Smiley was out there, Rex Posado, Mousy from Daly City, Boxer. You know, a lot of people who carry a lot of weight, you know what I mean, already knew me. So it wasn't that big of a shocking idea that I take that step. You know what I mean? But the way I was introduced to taking the next step above that, man, is you know, I was running all of Quinton one time as a bro. There wasn't nobody more experienced than me, and it was me and me and Flacco from Santa Rosa and Porky from Daly City. and we kind of ran it by our own little committee. We had like not an official, but like an unofficial chain of command out there. You know what I mean? It was us three were responsible for all the Quentin period because there was no C's, and we didn't have communication even with the gentleman over in AC, them three brothers over there. We didn't have that line of communication wasn't established at that point in time. Well, anyway, we go to Pelican Bay, me and Porky, and that leaves Flacco in charge. We bounce. They slide us into C12. Tibbs and DC are my neighbor. Wino and Little Man are upstairs, or excuse me, me and Porky are upstairs. Because I was upstairs first before I was neighbors with Tibbs. So me and Porky were upstairs. Little Man and Little G were next to us. Wino was downstairs. Tibbs and DC were next to Wino. And like, man, we submit all our information, all the paperwork we have with us. We submitted for an Olson review. I don't know if a lot of viewers are familiar with what that is, but that's basically requesting your entire C file, minus the confidential information where people snitched on you.
They put a little tape. They tell you to tape everything that you want copies of.
Yes. So we get those, and we submit them to Little G and Little Man, who obviously gives them to the homies downstairs. We get cleared after about 10 days or 2 weeks or so, and man, the first day we're clear, they're in the vent talking about, hey, what do you guys know about the Nuestra Familia?
Let me ask you about this. Let me ask you about this real quick.
Yeah.
Rojo?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why was that process occurring with you guys so fast though, man? Like, wouldn't you be like from my understanding, my knowledge of how they recruit, they consider you a prospect or candidate first.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they have to observe you for a couple months. Like, it seemed like that just happened like way like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, what I'm thinking is, bro, they knew we were going to be back there for a considerable amount of time. And, you know, all I could gather is they had an opportunity to evaluate us right then, and maybe through talking to other channels and communicating with other people in Pelican Bay, we might have got a nice referral or something, man. I really don't know. I was never told, hey, you know, this is an extremely fast-paced, streamlined thing, that because Little Man and Little G, who were already C's when we got there, they went through the same process, man, with Tibbs and DC before we got there, and they were already C's. So I think to be totally honest, man, I think what they wanted is, since me and Porky were both heading to the streets, Little Man and Little G all headed to the streets real quick, and Wino right behind us, they wanted to muster up power on the streets. You know what I mean? And knowing making us C's would make us, we have no choice in whether we wanted to contribute, not contribute, or abide by policy, procedure, and orders. That's what I'm getting. They wanted manpower on the streets. There's always going to be hella C's in prison, but on streets, man, sometimes there might be only one or two C's out from the far down south as they are all the way up to the Oregon. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've been out there. When I was out there, it was, man, basically me, Lizard, and Roach at one point, and that was it. Everybody else was in the county jail doing a quick thing, and Quentin on a turnaround or locked up, you know, back on a term. You know, so they wanted numbers, and you look at, man, I got out in like 2 years. Porky got out in like 2.5 years. Little G got out in 2. Little Man got out in 4. And then Wino had like 3 from the day I pulled up there. So, you know, you're putting at least 5 C's on the streets in a nice short amount of time, trained by who a lot of people believe is the best mind in the organization. You know what I mean? So that's what I would guess, bro, was the reason that it didn't take long.
So when you got elevated to Cat 2, right?
Yeah.
You know how you got recruited. I know you sponsored a couple people.
Right.
Okay. Now, were those sponsorships, because I know certain C's that used to be told by other C's that they needed have a certain people recruit, the books were open, that they had to recruit for this certain C. Were you told directly by Tibbs to start recruiting people, or was this something that you were just doing on your own and submitting?
No, I was told that when I got to the streets, I wasn't to recruit no more bros or nothing like that, to focus only on C's if a candidate overwhelmed me with their potential. You know what I mean? Mexican Mike, obviously. And then, you know, when I had came back for a term, It was a little short term. I only got like 2 years. I got lucky. Flacco from Santa Rosa. You know what I mean? So those are like the two main people that and Jimmy. I also started the process with Troubles, Jimmy Morales from Visa. You know what I mean? Tulare County. I think he was from Visa. Yeah, he had to be from Visa. Those are the three people that I spoke for, but I recruited a handful of bros, you know, over my time, you know, because once you're NF, you could just, okay, yeah, all right, you're a bro, basically. You know what I mean? There's not the limitations. As far as the C, I still had to refer back, obviously, you know, per the Constitution, you know what I'm saying, and get approval for them. But all three of the people that I picked were approved. You know what I mean? But, you know, I wasn't trying to fast track that stuff like that because I didn't want that responsibility be falling on me either. You know, like when Tibbs pulls you or Corny pulls you or somebody like that, hey, you know, who's going to tell them something if the guy messes up? But, you know, if I pull the wrong person, they might be like, you know, what the F is wrong with you, bro? You know what I mean? But yeah, so they had, I'll get back to the story. They had they like the first day we were cleared, it was a simple question, like, what do you guys know about the Nuestra Familia? And you know, that, like I said in past episodes, we were kind of shocked that such a youngster, because he was only like 24 or 25 maybe, was asking me this question. You know, me and Porky had to talk for a second, bro. Like, should we even acknowledge this dude? But we had heard Tibbs talk to him and all that, you know, during them 2 weeks. We were kind of on, you know, we weren't on freeze. We were in the roll call and all that, but they weren't really talking to us like that because they don't know us yet. But man, it started right away, bro. Like straight up. Little man took responsibility for Porky. Little G took responsibility for me. About a couple weeks go by and Tibbs is like, he comes to the cell and said he heard that we wanted to know more and whatever. And basically he told us in not so many words, consider yourself on probation. You know what I mean? You know, from here on out, you know, we're going to be keeping an eye on you. You know, I guess, man, since they knew we were already bros, and I'm sure that they had heard we were running the yard, you know, down in Quinton, you know what I mean? Because other homeboys that came up too at the same time from the hole in Quinton that had been around longer than us, they just weren't, you know, in the leadership. They just didn't have that leadership potential, man. So we assumed it when we were in Quinton. And I'm sure word got around that they figured out that we were probably some all right dudes, you know what I mean? So, you know, after, man, I got put on probation, man, it was like, man, 6 months, maybe 8 at the most before I got pulled, you know, officially. And man, it was just stop bombardment, bro, of street functions, mostly in Constitution. You know what I mean? I'd spend 4 or 5 hours, you know, going over the Constitution. Man, I damn near had it memorized, bro, that long ass Constitution. I almost had it word for word, bro. You know what I mean? Like I could name 90% of it word for word, bro. Here and there, I'd get mixed up maybe with the if or a in, or you know what I mean? Something small like that. But I made
so
many copies of it. Excuse me?
They were on your ass for those little missed words too, huh?
No, not so much, bro. Not so much. Hey, a lot of people probably think because Tibbs wants to do 522 counts that he's some asshole. He's cool, bro. Man, he's cool as the day is long. You know what I'm saying? He's a cool dude, bro. He ain't tripping like that. You know what I mean? But I wrote so many damn copies of the Constitution that it was hard not to start absorbing it, even if I'm not trying to, because my penmanship was elite. You know what I mean? And I was right next door, so they could pass stuff. You know how Pelican Bay is. They can pass stuff right under the door. If you're right next to each other in the middle cells, it's only this far. You know what I mean? So you could pass a piece of paper over and they could grab it with their hand. You don't got to fish. Police won't see it or nothing. So I must have made 20, 30 copies of that Constitution over the year. Plus I'd study it for a few hours a day. Plus I'd think about it as I was making copies of it. And then, you know, one day it might be how to establish your regiment, how to accumulate enough weaponry, how to, you know, get your squads together, how to establish superior killing power, how to hit armored trucks, how to rob banks, man. The safest ways to stash your product, safest way to store weapons. It could be any one of those topics. Man, we're talking 8 hours a day, bro. All day. You know what I mean? All day. And that's after doing a couple hours of burpees and shit and washing up, you know. It was just straight business, bro. It was straight it was straight college with no choice. Like you couldn't be like, oh, I'm not going to class this day. You know, I'm gonna drink tonight and man, we'll catch up. Nah, bro, every day, bang, bang, bang. We just banged it out. But yeah, that's why they call me the constitutionalist, bro, because I can answer, you know what I mean? Like OGs would be like, God damn, how do you know all that stuff? Man, I had to copy it 40 times and it's fucking 20 pages. You know what I mean? You know, you'd have to be dumb not to absorb it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, the recruiting process for me, and I'm only talking about my experiences because that's the only experience that I could, you know, put out in the universe accurately because it happened to me. You know, other people, you know, they might have had to sit around for a while, man. They might have put in 5 times the amount of work that I did. But you know, it was real circumstantial. They needed people on the streets. I ended up right next to, you couldn't end up, you know, in more powerful of a place than I did. At C12 that time, there was Tibbs, damn DC, Corny, Boxer from Selma. You know what I mean? The 2 other most influential people at the time were Pinky and Tex. Those are the only people missing from C12. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it was headquarters in 95, 96, basically with C12, you know, and then it changed to C9 when Corny and them moved over there and they sent Tibbs wherever, C4, wherever they sent him. But it was just all the stars were lined up for us 5 youngsters, you know, me being the youngest too, to fast track our way in, you know, just by where we ended up. It was a matter of circumstance and a need of people on the streets because there wasn't no money being made on the streets.
That's a big need.
And they wanted a younger era, bro. They wanted some younger minds and younger ideas out on the streets. They didn't use drugs. You know,
that's where they were changing later on too, though. Like post Black Widow is that the feds was not allowing them to recruit in the state. Anybody that was being recruited behind the walls, they're putting a red flag on them. They were recruiting everybody out there on the streets. They were putting everybody on probation. I don't know how many C's I know personally back then that went through that whole different process. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know?
It changes, man. It changes as needs develop, as other circumstances dictate, bro. You know, it could be any different number of things, but you know, I remember now that we talked about the reason why is you know, they were tired of a lot of the older people that kept going out, getting busted, being high with drugs, etc. You know what I mean? Coming right back, not generating no money. They wanted to try to put some youngsters out there that don't use drugs. I told them straight up, I'm like, I don't even smoke Yeska. You know what I mean? Like, Wino, you know, don't get me wrong. I've tried drugs before. Wino's tried drugs, Porky, you know what I'm saying? But that's not my thing though. You know what I mean? And they just wanted to try something. It was an experiment for them, I guess. I don't know. But it worked out cool until it didn't. It worked out fine until it stopped working out, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty quick, man, but it was intense. I mean, all bullshit aside, we got probably 5 years worth of Klecha in like 1 year. You know what I mean? Where you would normally be expected to absorb this amount, man, it was nonstop. But it was, at the same time, we didn't mind because Tibbs was cool as shit. You know what I mean? He wasn't a dick, bro. I mean, and that is important in leadership, bro. You don't got to be a dick to be a good leader. Like, I know a lot of people with a lot less weight than him. They couldn't walk in his shoes or hold his umbrella for him in the rain, that are just straight assholes, and they wonder why. Oh, this dude ends up telling on me. You know what I mean? Or this dude badmouths me or whatever. It's because you're a dick, bro. You don't gotta be a dick. You can handle your business. I can sit here with a smile, but we can handle our goddamn business. You know what I mean? I don't know.
All right, you two, man. This was just a little quick analysis about how the different recruitments, you know what I mean, the NF organization, the NR, they've changed throughout the years. When I was out there, it was totally different, man. They were recruiting people based upon who was out in the streets, who was generating money, and everybody in the state basically was being put on freeze from recruiting. It had to come through the feds back then. It was a real interesting situation. And they were recruiting mainly people that were out there on the streets that had been out there. So it was a whole different time change. And it seems like they had the same mindset back then. All the people at that time were starting to be recruited. And they stripped all that, man. Like, it's like I said, man, the recruiting basis is going to be for two different objectives, man. If you're being recruited in organizations because they want you to generate money. If you're being recruited in NR, it's because they feel you're a capable soldado that could be useful behind the walls. With that said, guys, man, it's your boy Flacco. I'm out.
Rojo, man.
You guys have a good one.
Yes, sir.